The rain had stopped just before midnight, leaving the streets outside glistening under the dim porch light. Inside the quiet house, every sound felt louder. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the old wall clock, and the soft rhythm of two breaths trying to stay calm. Claire sat at the edge of the couch, her silk robe slightly open at the collar, damp hair clinging to her neck. Emily stood across the room, arms folded, still trembling from what had just happened, not from fear, but from the weight of what it meant. Neither of them said anything for a long time. "You shouldn't have come tonight," Claire finally whispered. Her voice carried both longing and regret, like she was trying to protect something that was already broken. "I didn't plan to," Emily said quietly. "I just needed to see you." Claire turned toward her, eyes tired but soft. "And now that you have, does it help?" Emily stepped closer, her voice trembling. "No, it makes it worse." Their eyes locked, and in that single moment, the silence between them became unbearable. The tension that had been building for weeks finally broke when Emily reached out, fingers brushing against Claire's hand. Claire didn't pull away this time. She just exhaled, shaky, conflicted, before their lips met again, desperate and afraid. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant, then deepened with the kind of urgency that only people with too much to lose can have. It wasn't just passion. It was a confession of everything they couldn't say aloud. But then, a sound. A small creak from the hallway. They froze. Emily pulled back, her chest rising and falling fast. Claire turned her head toward the door, but before either could move, it opened slightly. Sophie stood there. Her best friend. Claire's daughter. The look on Sophie's face was something neither of them would ever forget. Disbelief first, then confusion, then the kind of betrayal that made the air in the room vanish. "Mom? What is this?" Sophie's voice cracked. Emily stepped back, eyes wide, words stuck in her throat. "Sophie, it's not—" "Don't," Sophie said sharply, shaking her head. "Don't lie." Claire's heart seemed to collapse inside her chest. She reached out, voice trembling. "Honey, please, just listen." "Listen to what?" Sophie snapped. "To how you're sleeping with my best friend? Jesus, Mom! She's my age!" Emily flinched like she'd been slapped. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" Sophie demanded, "because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that." Tears welled in Claire's eyes, but she didn't move closer. She knew the wrong step could make everything explode. "You don't understand." "Then explain it." Sophie's voice cracked again. "Because right now, all I see is that I've been blind this whole time." Emily's voice barely came out. "Sophie, I swear I never wanted to—" "Don't talk to me," Sophie said, her voice shaking now, the anger giving way to hurt. "You were my best friend, Emily. You could have told me anything, but this—" Her voice broke completely. "You went behind my back with my mom."
"Don't," Sophie said sharply, shaking her head. "Don't lie." Claire's heart seemed to collapse inside her chest. She reached out, voice trembling. "Honey, please, just listen." "Listen to what?" Sophie snapped. To how you're sleeping with my best friend? Jesus, Mom, she's my age! Emily flinched like she'd been slapped. It's not like that. Then what is it? Sophie demanded. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. Tears welled in Claire's eyes, but she didn't move closer. She knew the wrong step could make everything explode. You don't understand. Then explain it, Sophie's voice cracked again. Because right now, all I see is that I've been blind this whole time. Emily's voice barely came out. Sophie, I swear I never wanted... Don't talk to me, Sophie said, her voice shaking now, the anger giving way to hurt. You were my best friend, Emily. You could have told me anything, but this? Her voice broke completely. You went behind my back with my mom. She turned away before either could answer and walked out. The slam of the front door echoed through the house like a gunshot. The silence that followed felt endless. Emily sank to her knees, burying her face in her hands. Claire stared at the door, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Every instinct in her screamed to run after Sophie, but she couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. I've ruined everything, Emily whispered. I swear I didn't mean for this to happen. Claire slowly walked to her, knelt down, and gently took her face in her hands. You didn't ruin this alone, she said softly. I knew what I was doing. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself I could handle it. But now she hates me. And she should. She doesn't hate you, Claire said, voice trembling. She's hurt. She'll need time. Emily looked up, eyes red. And what about you? Claire hesitated. I need time too. The next day was chaos wrapped in silence. Sophie didn't come home that night. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Claire barely slept, pacing from room to room until dawn. When the sun finally came through the window, she found herself standing in the kitchen, staring at 2 coffee mugs like muscle memory refused to forget that Emily had stayed over. At school, Emily walked through the halls like a ghost. Sophie wasn't there either. Every glance from classmates felt heavier, like they knew something, even though they didn't. Yet. When Sophie finally showed up 2 days later, she didn't speak to anyone, not even Emily. She sat at the far end of the class, arms crossed, jaw tight. Emily tried to meet her eyes once, but Sophie looked away immediately. That hurt more than the shouting. During lunch, Emily slipped into the empty art room. The smell of paint thinner lingered in the air, familiar and oddly comforting. She sat on a stool and stared at her reflection in the glass window. That's when Claire walked in. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair tied loosely. You shouldn't be here, Emily said quietly. I needed to see you, just once, to know you're okay. Emily laughed bitterly. Do I look okay? Claire's eyes softened. No, you look like I feel. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The sound of rain started again outside, soft, almost forgiving. I talked to her, Claire said eventually. She's angry, but she's mostly just hurt. She said she doesn't know who I am anymore. Emily swallowed hard. Do you? Claire looked down. That's the problem. I don't. Emily stood up, trembling. Maybe this was never supposed to happen. Maybe it was just... Claire stepped closer. Don't say it meant nothing. Emily's voice cracked. Then what does it mean, Claire? Because right now it feels like everything and nothing at the same time. Claire's eyes glistened. It means that for the first time in years, I felt alive. I felt seen. But I also feel like I've betrayed everyone I love. Emily looked away, tears spilling silently. I never wanted to hurt her. Or you. Claire brushed a strand of hair from her face, her touch trembling. You didn't hurt me, Emily. You just reminded me what pain feels like. Their eyes met again, not with desire this time, but with the kind of ache that comes when love becomes impossible. Maybe you should stay away for a while, Claire whispered. For her sake. Emily nodded slowly. And for yours? Claire forced a sad smile. If you stay, I'll never be able to let go. Emily took a step back, her breath shaky. Goodbye, Claire. Claire didn't answer. She just watched as Emily walked out of the room, her figure fading in the reflection of the rain-streaked glass. That night, Claire sat on Sophie's bed. The room was quiet, except for the sound of thunder rolling in the distance. On the dresser, a picture of Sophie and Emily, arms wrapped around each other at last year's festival, stared back at her like a cruel reminder. Sophie opened the door quietly, surprising her. I didn't think you'd still be up, Sophie said softly. Claire looked up, unsure if she was allowed to speak. Sophie hesitated at the door, then finally sat on the edge of the bed, not too close, but close enough. I talked to Emily, Sophie said after a long silence. Claire's heart skipped. You did? She said she's sorry, said she doesn't want to make things worse. Claire nodded, tears filling her eyes again. She's right. Sophie looked down at her hands. I don't get it, Mom. How could you? She's my best friend. Claire swallowed hard. Because sometimes love doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. And by the time you realize what it is, it's already too late. Sophie stared at the floor for a long time and then finally looked up, tears streaming. Do you love her? Claire hesitated, but lying now would only make it worse. Yes, she whispered. I do. Sophie's jaw tightened, but her voice was quiet. Then I don't know how to hate you for it. Tears fell freely now as Claire reached for her hand. I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not ready to, but I don't want to lose you either. She pulled her into a trembling hug, both of them crying, mother and daughter, both broken by the same secret, both trying to rebuild something from the pieces. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft, endless, cleansing. And somewhere across town, Emily stood alone under a streetlight, clutching her phone, but not calling, because sometimes the bravest thing love can do is stay silent. Morning light crept through thin curtains, soft and pale, painting the house in silence. Claire sat at the kitchen table, a mug of untouched coffee cooling beside her. Her reflection stared back from the dark window, older, hollow-eyed, but oddly calm, like she'd made peace with a punishment she hadn't yet received. Upstairs, Sophie's door was shut. 2 days of silence between them had settled like dust, visible, heavy, everywhere. Claire exhaled, pulled an envelope from a drawer, and began to write. Emily, if you're reading this, I've probably lost the right to say anything that sounds like love. But there are words that choke me when I try to speak them, and I don't want them to die inside me. You didn't ruin my life. You reminded me I had one. You reminded me that somewhere between PTA meetings and polite dinners, there was still a woman who could feel something raw, something terrifying, something real. I won't ask you to come back. I just hope you don't stop believing that what we felt was more than a mistake. For me, it's my son. You never met him. He died before you came. But I've learned a lesson that's still haunting me. I was too afraid to love him properly. During the most beautiful years of my life, I was too afraid to be happy. You have this chance. Now is your time. Don't let anything stand in your way. C. Her handwriting trembled halfway through the last line. She folded the paper neatly, sealed it, and tucked it inside the drawer again. She didn't intend to send it. Not yet. Maybe never. Then she heard a quiet knock on the door. "Mom?" Sophie's voice, small, hesitant. Claire straightened up, wiped her eyes. "Come in." Sophie stepped in wearing one of Claire's old sweaters, sleeves covering her hands. She looked like a child again, but her eyes were older, searching. "Can we talk?" Claire nodded. "Of course." Sophie said, "I saw Emily yesterday, at the bookstore. She looked different." "Different how?" Sophie said, like she's trying not to cry in public. "She said she's leaving town for a while." Claire looked down. "Maybe that's for the best." Sophie hesitated, then, "Do you love her?" The question hit harder this time. There was no anger in Sophie's tone, just quiet curiosity, almost fear. Claire met her eyes. "Yes, I think I always will." Sophie looked away, jaw trembling. "Then why didn't you fight for her?" Claire whispered, "Because fighting for her would mean losing you." Sophie didn't reply. She stood up, walked toward the kitchen window, and that's when she noticed the slightly open drawer. A white edge of paper peeked out. "Mom, what's this?" Claire froze. "It's nothing." But Sophie had already pulled the envelope free, eyes flicking to the name on the front. Emily. She looked at Claire, betrayed, but not angry, more stunned. "You wrote her a letter?" Claire reached out. "Sophie, please." But Sophie had already unfolded it. Her eyes moved across the page, her face shifting with every line. Confusion, pain, then something softer, sadder. When she finished, she just stood there, silent. "I wasn't going to send it," Claire said. I needed to say it somewhere." Sophie put the letter down carefully, as though it might shatter. "You still mean every word." "Yes." Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. "You really love her."
Claire nodded. Sophie looked at her mother for a long moment, tears gathering but not falling. Then maybe she shouldn't leave without knowing that. Before Claire could answer, Sophie turned and left the kitchen. The front door opened, then closed again, quick, decisive. The bookstore was nearly empty when Sophie arrived. The air smelled of rain and paper, that clean, quiet scent of places that hold secrets. Emily stood by the counter, a small box of books beside her. She looked up when the door chimed, and her expression faltered. "Sophie." "Hi," Sophie said, voice steady but fragile. "You're really leaving?" Emily nodded. "Just for a while. I need to get my head straight." Sophie stepped closer, pulled a folded letter from her pocket. "She wrote this for you. She wasn't going to send it." Emily took it carefully, her fingers shaking. "You read it?" "Yes." Emily waited, unsure. "She loves you," Sophie said simply, "and she's miserable pretending she doesn't." Emily's eyes glossed over. "Sophie, I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," Sophie said quietly. "That's why it hurts more." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 generations of love and loss colliding in a single breath. Sophie finally whispered, "If you still love her, don't disappear. Just give her time." Emily nodded slowly. "Thank you." Sophie turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I just wish love didn't have to look like this." When she was gone, Emily sat down on one of the wooden benches by the window. The rain started again, soft against the glass. She unfolded the letter, read it once, then again. By the 3rd time, her tears had blurred the ink. That night, Claire was in the garden, trimming dead roses when she heard the gate creak open. Emily stood there, soaked from the rain, letter clutched in her hand. You shouldn't have read it, Claire said softly, though her voice broke halfway through. I didn't, Emily said. Sophie did. Claire froze. She gave it to me, Emily said. Told me you still love me. Claire's breath caught. I do. Emily stepped closer, rain dripping from her hair. Then stop hiding. Claire shook her head. I can't. Sophie, she's stronger than you think, Emily interrupted gently. She just wants the truth. The garden lights flickered in the drizzle, tiny halos in the dark. Emily reached out, touched Claire's wet sleeve. We don't have to fix everything tonight. Just stop pretending we're nothing. For the first time in weeks, Claire smiled, small, trembling, but real. You came back. Emily brushed a strand of hair from her face. You wrote me first. They stood there in the soft rain, neither sure what tomorrow would bring. The pain was still there, heavy as ever, but beneath it, something else. A pulse, a beginning. From an upstairs window, Sophie watched them, not with anger this time, but with something close to peace. She turned away, closed the curtains gently, and whispered to herself, maybe love doesn't always make sense, but at least it's honest. Outside, in the quiet rhythm of the rain, two women stood in the garden, broken, forgiven, and, at last, seen.